Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Planet FPL fan view. I welcome one of our correspondents onto the podcast to discuss recent events at their football club. And it's returning and promoted correspondent. Let me introduce you to our Southampton correspondent, Matt Samuel. How are you, Matt?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. Pleasure to be back.
Good stuff, mate. Pleased to have you back, mate. Only a year away. How does it
Yeah.
feel, mate?
Yeah, it was a bit of an emotional roller coaster, to be honest. It's good to get it over the line, but I can't say it's not been stressful for periods.
No, I hear you, mate. I want to go back to day one originally.
Yep,
Friday night, Sheffield Wednesday away.
I was there.
Oh, you was at Hillsborough that night,
Yeah.
yeah? What was you thinking of all this sideways passing that we was all watching, 80% possession? We're gonna run the football match, but we're never gonna shoot a goal. Were you like, what have I let myself in
Yeah,
for here?
it was mad, wasn't it? Like, we were breaking all sorts of records, but we weren't really doing much with it. Then obviously it took a late Che Adams goal to win it. But yeah, it was an odd one because it's not something we've been used to. Obviously, he's Saints fans, and I'll profess I didn't know a lot about Russell Martin. I had the odd view from other people about his Swansea time, etc. But yeah, I didn't really know what to expect, and it was a bit of an up and down kind of pre-season. So yeah, going into that Sheffield Wednesday game, I thought, oh, well, we've got to win it if we stand a chance. But yeah, the way we kind of went about it was a little bit strange. It took a while to get used to.
But did you feel like you were watching something elite at the same time? You were like, this is not what I'm used to. So we've got relegated, and now we look like a more of a football team than we did when we were in the Premier League. Does that make sense?
It's strange. Obviously, when Che scores, usually you're nervous, etc. But I don't think Wednesday touched the ball after that. We had the ball for about 9 minutes, and you never felt like they were going to come back into it. So yeah, it was a really weird feeling to kind of end an away day.
Is that what you are primarily now? For those who don't know, you're a possession-based football team. Leicester had 62% of the ball last season. You had 66%. Two-thirds of the
Yeah,
ball on average throughout the season is mad, mate.
we were, but then you look at our games against Leeds, for instance, and we seem to have that other side to us where we're happy to give the opposing team the ball. And I think there are definitely situations where dominating the ball works, but we are a bit slow with it. And there have been periods where, even the fans, yeah, it takes a while to get people on board. But for instance, I've got an old boy that's been watching Southampton for the last 40 years. It sits next to me as a season ticket holder. And all I hear from him is forward, forward. And it's like he doesn't quite understand why we're doing it. But there are periods where I agree with him because we're just passing it for passing's sake. But it's composure at the end of the day. It's about breaking those lines. And again, yeah, it's a completely different football philosophy for us as Saints fans.
So this philosophy was working. You're winning games. And then there was this mad result at Sunderland. You lost 5-0. And you probably thought, thanks, Saints, just what I needed just as I was about to go on to Planet FPL
Yeah,
with Aaron Lager, because that
yeah,
was the last time we spoke to you before you then played Leicester City.
yeah. It was.
I watched the game. You got murdered 4-1
Yep.
at home. And then you lost at home to Ipswich afterwards,
Yeah.
which
Thanks.
seems fair enough now in hindsight, but probably felt like a very bad result at the
Yeah.
time as they'd been promoted from League One. Then you lost at Middlesbrough as
Middlesbrough.
well.
Yeah.
So four defeats on the spin all of a sudden, and you conceding a load of goals. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't think you were particularly bad against Leicester that night, but the amount of chances you gave up
It was mad.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
So you got this good football philosophy, but you're passing the ball too much, not creating enough chances. But now every time the opposition creates a chance against you, you're conceding, is what it feels like.
Yep.
How big was the pressure against Russell Martin at that stage?
Oh, it was building. Even though it was early in the season, to have had that reasonable start, you pick up 10 points for the first four games, to then lose to, effectively teams that you think are going to be there or thereabouts, top half of the table, and lose, not just lose, but lose in the way that we did was, yeah, gut wrenching. And you started to question maybe not Martin, but whether the players were good enough to try and play the style that he clearly wanted to implement. And that was always going to be an issue. Obviously, we lost a few in the summer. We put a few out on loan, brought in, the likes of Downs, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But it took them a while to really get to grips with it. Even the results that we did have, they weren't that convincing. It's, 1-0. No, it was 2-1 against Plymouth. Obviously, 2-1 against Sheffield Wednesday to start with, 2-1 QPR, and that 4-all against Norwich. The signs were there, but we were conceding goals constantly. So yeah, I think the kick up the arse was definitely needed for those four games. All the podcasts I listened to for Saints were a bit down. It clearly wasn't going to happen this season, etc. But yeah, that Leeds game is obviously the turning point for the season.
What turn there? Was it just the fact that you beat a kind of a big opponent you knew
Yeah,
you were going to be competing with?
yep, yeah. Everybody seemed to get on side at that point, and I mean, a bit of a story about that one because I was there with the old man, and 12 minutes in, he started to have
Kick it
kind
long.
of like no, he had chest problems.
Oh,
So
sorry.
no, but that's probably because the bloke was shouting it next to us. But yeah, I saw the first goal, and then we're taken to the first aid room, and he's all right, he's fine. But yeah, we're taken to the first aid room, and I hear the next two goals. And then when we're getting in the ambulance to go to the hospital, Leeds score. So I had no idea what was going on until I saw the highlights. All I could hear was the crowd and the goals. But yeah, it was clearly a wild day. And yeah, from then, we went on the 25 game unbeaten run, which sadly ended when I went away to Bristol City.
Is the old man well now?
Uh, thereabouts. He's got kidney issues, so he's
Okay.
having dialysis now. So yeah, he's all right.
I'll send our regards. I take it you've been away quite a bit this year then.
Yeah, I've done 5 away games this season. Managed to because it was mainly the midweek nights. Those were the ones I could get tickets for. Almost impossible to get tickets for the weekend ones. It's the lads from the season gone by that had 9, 10 away games, and we sell out pretty much every single away allocation we've had. So yeah, it was usually Tuesday or Wednesday nights I could get tickets for.
So the one where the allocation's not taken up drops down to your area.
Yeah,
You've seen Together, right?
yeah.
Every home game. Near
Yeah,
enough. This 25 game run
yep,
starts with Leeds, ends that
that's
night at Bristol City
yeah,
in February. I think you've done full circle where you were conceding for fun. It was like, yeah, they're not going to win enough games. To then looking unbeatable and feeling like you're probably going to go up in the top two at that stage. I think that's what most of
yeah,
us thought
yeah.
late January, early February. Then you hit the skids again a little bit. Defeats to Bristol City, she said. Hull, Millwall. You lost at Liverpool in the FA Cup. When I
Yep,
think when the draw was made, people were like, they're going to give
yeah.
Liverpool a proper game. And then by the time it came round, it was like, they're not actually.
No.
What happened over that period with those defeats in February? And
It was
was it just a result of you'd had a really good run without getting beat that you would due?
a bit of both. We had injuries, which didn't help. So we had knocks to Harwood Bellis. Downs was out for a period. Bednarak. So we ended up, ironically, it was Jack Stevens that came back in, and I mean, I think he's managed to turn his season around, and everybody's full of praise for him now. But he came back in just as that started to turn, and it wasn't necessarily coming back in at centre back. He was kind of being shipped in at left back, or he's being shipped in at centre midfield. And Martin was adamant that Stevens was the solution to get us promoted, and he was pivotal. But he hadn't really featured in the 25 games, so none of us really understood it. And yeah, the team just seemed from that Bristol City moment, we thought, oh, here we go. And obviously, we went away to West Brom, won pretty comfortably 2-0, which was a massive result for us. But then we didn't follow it up, like you said. We then lost the next 3 games and then just about scraped a win away to Birmingham after they had a man sent off. And you start to worry that, fair enough. I think playoffs by that point are guaranteed. Maybe that got to the players a little bit, seeing that the fact that, Ipswich were still so consistent, and then Leicester. And then that Ipswich game from that point on, obviously, when we lose away to them 3-2, in the last minute of the game, basically kills the rest of the season. I don't think there was the impetus to go on and really push. It was more conserve and try a few different formations, etc., moving into the playoffs.
We went through the playoffs essentially not really conceding a goal
Yeah.
because you had the second leg obviously well won against West Brom.
Yep.
I saw the second leg and you were the better team by a long, long way. How was the atmosphere different at St Mary's that night, before, during, and after? Because I think it's one of them. I don't know if maybe there's a perception of, oh, certain games in this country are really difficult because they're in the north. I don't know if that's a southern attitude, but Southampton away never fills me of one that would be intimidating.
Nope.
It's a nice away day.
Yeah.
You're a nice lot, really. We can mix with you before the game.
Exactly.
Not a problem. I'm not sure I would have wanted to be outside St Mary's before that one. What's gone on there?
Yeah, it was a bit of a mad one. So I think that whole nice nature. Um, the board and the owners weren't particularly obviously impressed with it and thought, you know what, like let's get something going here. So yeah, it became apparent that people would.
Just jumping, you're saying I'm not comfortable, not happy with the atmosphere just generally at St Mary's.
Yeah, it's too nice, and it's been too
I
nice
agree
for
with that.
a long time. Like you said, we've got away pubs, etc. In town, but you all take the same route to the ground. And other than say, when Portsmouth or Bournemouth, for instance, have come, we've never really had any issues. You stand there and you chat to people on the way into the ground. It's not a particular split. Obviously, you've been there before, but you've got the northern end, which historically until next season, which is finally changing, we've had that split. So the away fans have been between our two kind of loudest section of fans. Finally, we're taking the northern back as an entire home end, and the away fans are basically being shipped to the other side of the ground, which is
Is that
Saints
right?
Correspondent. Yeah, so they're going to the chapel, kind of Kingsland, which is actually near where I sit, but it's the quiet end of the ground. That's what it's known as. So yeah, we're taking the entirety of Northern, and it's going to be safe standing, etc. So I think the owners are really trying to change the approach in which Southampton are seen. And like you've said, and you've probably seen it all on TV, but it went around saying, look, let's get to the ground a couple of hours before the fan zone was going to open early. You got discounted rates on beers, etc., and bring your flares. And I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I couldn't
Bring
breathe
your
for about.
flares.
Yeah,
Love
I
it.
couldn't breathe for about 45 minutes, and it was mad. Like just to be a part of it and think this is actually my club. Like this is the approach that we're allowing. For the buses to come in, the players are seeing that, and you could really feel it, even in the ground an hour and a half before the game. The atmosphere's never been like that since I've been going to St Mary's. It was
No,
it
I've
was
never known it. I mean, you was in
no,
Europe, what, sort of 6, 7 years ago? There
yeah.
was never anything like that
Nope,
then.
it was nothing like that for Milan, and yet we turn up for second leg against West Brom.
It's good though, isn't it? By the way, we're not saying that it should be intimidating,
No,
as
no,
in walk into the
no.
ground. It's good if you can chat to opposition fans. That's good. But all I mean by that is, yes, the atmosphere in the ground. You never been at St Mary's and thought we're under pressure here and the crowd's
Yeah.
really up. Like it's been probably. I've actually never seen Tottenham win at Southampton. Extremely bizarrely, not at St Mary's anyway. I have at the Dell, not
Mm.
at St Mary's. But even with that in mind, it's never felt like a place where you think, oh, I need to quieten.
No,
There's places you go and you think you've got to shut the crowd up. You'd never think that at Southampton.
no, we shut ourselves up.
But that night was different.
Yeah.
That was 12th man stuff, mate.
Oh, 100%.
So does that hold now going into next season?
Um, I'd like to think so, but I think it's going to take a lot of change and a lot of mentality change for match going fans. Like it's still very much a family club.
Yeah.
We've got the family end, etc. I think the northern change is going to help. You're going to get probably the voices down there. Obviously, the safe standing is going to improve. That whole section's effectively going to become a home kind of fan zone. I think that will potentially provide a bit of atmosphere and it will get louder, but you're still going to have the pockets and the remaining of the stadium. I think it's just going to enjoy the game for what it is, really. I don't think we're ever going to be that club where you come and you're genuinely fearful or you're generally worried about stepping on the pitch and thinking, oh God, they're going to get at me today. But I would like to think that maybe we're not going to be so nice both on and off the pitch next season.
It's interesting now. I kind of want to touch on this moving away, the away fans to the other end, because I wasn't aware of this. But a lot of places you go, the noisiest bits of the crowd are next to away fans, and
Yep.
people want to sit near away fans. Are you sure this won't just have the opposite effect here, where people want to go to the other end?
I think they're so what the club have done is they've effectively sold that northern section first, and they've sold out the entire allocation to existing season ticket holders for those that want to sit down this end. And obviously, I guess completely different worlds, but very similar to say, Dortmund, the yellow wall, etc. I guess that's the vibe they're going for is they want an entire end of the stadium just to be dedicated to Southampton. I think you will potentially get some of the ones that were in the corners maybe move towards the away fans, but it's still designated as a family section on the right of where they sit, and then on the left hand side, the whole front section is disabled allocation. So yeah, it's gonna be a strange thing to get used to.
You'd not just done this with the home end as it was, though.
No, no, because they basically took up half of the home end. So that yeah, they've moved them to the corner.
At the other side of the ground.
Yeah, other
My
side of the
dad's going
ground.
to be well happy. That's an extra 5 minute walk to the station now. Most of it's
Yeah, it is.
uphill. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's not going to be happy about that. I wish Leeds had gone up now, mate.
yeah.
Talk, talk to me about the final then.
Oh yeah,
at
God,
Wembley.
yeah.
What's the feeling going into that? Is it confidence because of how easy you've won that semi-final? It's worth saying Leeds won theirs very easily as well.
I was still nervous because it's Southampton at the end of the day, and you never quite know. One side of it, I had dinner with my old man and one of my best mates. We met before for lunch, and we were chatting about it. And I was like, well, obviously we went through with the West Brom game. We'd beaten them both times during the league season. Comfortably went through in the end, and we've beaten Leeds twice, albeit once at home it was the turnaround, and the second game, probably extenuating circumstances. Both of us knew we weren't going up automatically, for instance, but we still got the win. So yeah, it was a bit like that. And as soon as you saw the lineups, we kind of stuck with the system that seems to have worked for the last 3 or 4 games, and it's something a little different to what we had throughout the season. And despite the first, say, 10 minutes of the game, after that, I never really felt that Leeds really threatened. And yeah, once we went 1-0 up, it's one of those weird games where I didn't really doubt that we were going to lose it then. I know you spoke about on the recent Madrid pod, you always thought Madrid were going to win. And likewise, well, yeah, I had that same feeling as soon as Armstrong put us 1-0 up.
You had 43% of the ball,
Yep.
nearly half of what you had at Sheffield Wednesday on that first evening.
Yep.
Did something change tactically at the end here? You said in the build-up when you knew you were in the playoffs but probably couldn't finish top two anymore, Russell Martin started trying things.
Yep.
What was this?
We went three at the back for a period. So rather than trying to shoehorn Jack Stevens into positions to get him into the team, we ended up having Harwood Bellis, Stevens, and Bednarak as a back three. And then it was commonly Walker Peters out on the right. And it became Ryan Fraser is kind of a left wing back until he got knackered, and then Manning would come on. And then obviously you had that kind of three in midfield from then. And then we had a two up top. So it was Armstrong plus another. It was Che until he got injured. And then we tried, a couple of other players adjacent Armstrong, which, Brooks, for instance, until he went off in the final. He was the one that was kind of sitting adjacent Adam Armstrong. And it doesn't give you that kind of threat thinking, oh my God, we're going to get goals, goals, goals here. But it gave us a little bit of confidence and a little bit of a stronghold at the back. Just, it's three solid defenders that really know what they're doing, and they all get stuck in for the team. And you could tell that they wanted it. And if you've got that, then it's great. And I guess we haven't touched on it, but Bazunu's injury kind of forced that hand in a sense, because McCarthy can't play anywhere near like Bazunu. He's dreadful with his feet.
You're talking about distribution here, obviously.
Yeah. But he's a very good shot stopper. And you could see from the moment that McCarthy came in, Martin had a word and said, look, keep it away from him. If we need to, fair enough, but keep it away. And suddenly we were 30, 40, 50 yards further up the pitch in starting in possession.
He's changed his principles now. Is that fair to say? Because he wants to play out from the back, but he's recognised with Bazuna's injury, you've got a real distribution problem. So he stripped it in terms of the defensive players as well, made it a little bit more uncompromising, let's say. And what we're saying here, taken away from his philosophy and gone back to basics almost?
Yeah, I'd say so. It was effectively, look, if we don't concede, we know we can get a goal here. And having that kind of 5-3-2, it was a real solidity. And it allowed Smallbone, who is probably one of the ones that benefited from it, to have a little bit of freedom really in the midfield, because he tried to play him as a 6 when Downs got injured, and he really isn't a 6. He's far better when he can progress as, say, an 8 and move forward with the ball. And you saw that with a couple of his goals. Trying to slot him in further back, it proves difficult, and he tends to have a tendency of losing the ball quite quickly. But if you've got someone like Flynn Downs in there, alongside Smallbone and Aribo, in front of that back five, it allows, say, Walker Peters to get up one end. Fraser, particularly in the final, it was quite clear he was told, your job is Nonto and Somerville, for instance. There's no way you're getting forward, because if he did, they would have got him behind. So, yeah, he's played a good role there, and it just meant that, look, Armstrong, he did it anyway during the season, but the importance of his goals was quite clear.
How big an influence do you think the second Leicester game had on this?
Huge.
Because I watched that game as well.
Yeah.
And there was a massive disparity between the two teams. You lost 5-0 on
Yep.
deny it. And I think if Leicester had wanted to get more in the end, they
Yeah.
probably could have.
The
And that was
players gave up.
despite you at time having some decent spells on the ball. But it felt again, it was like you've come up against a team again who's got good attacking players. You're going to get badly exposed.
Yep.
And they set up and took you very seriously.
Yeah.
That I mean, Cole Walker-Peters played left back for you that night and kept going into midfield.
Yep.
And your boy on the flank who scored the hat trick for Leicester just kept following him all over the pitch. Didn't matter where he went. He
No.
man marked him even though he was playing left back. And you got exposed badly. Every time they went forward in the second half, just like we're going to fall apart. Was that a blessing in the end almost when you reflect on that?
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. And I mean, Martin touched on it afterwards that the players gave up after 2-0. And that's not something he wanted to see. So I think they had conversations in the background after that game to say, look, play like this, you're not going to guarantee yourself going up, boys. Something needs to change. And I think, yeah, just that light bulb moment, which is something that we needed to say, look, we have to find a way of getting up. If that means potentially changing our philosophy and our style to win the games we know we've got to win, so be it.
So the two teams coming up with you, Ipswich beat you home and away.
Yep.
Leicester beat you 4-1 and 5-0.
Yep.
No one's going to give you a prayer, are they?
No, I expect not. The Ipswich games for me were frustrating because we should have beaten them at home and we threw it away at their place. But it's going to be an interesting summer. I think that's going to be key for us because at the moment with our current squad, I think we'll struggle. If we can make the right signings and get the right players in place, and providing that Martin proves to be as adaptable as he has at the end of the season, I think we've got a chance. But there's a project there, and the fans are going to have to accept that we're definitely not going to have the same season as we've had in the Championship. It's been great, to get the wins, to see goals, etc. But as long as we can get 17th, I'd be happy because it means that gives you that kind of foothold back in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think even though I think the quality of the three teams coming up this year as a whole is going to be stronger than the three that came up last year, I think because of what's happened to them,
Yep.
yeah, probably all three of you would go. Aaron said similar about Leicester, right? Yep, take 17th. Have
100%.
you looked at the bookies odds at all
No.
on relegation for next year?
No.
Do you think they've got you as favourites to finish bottom?
I don't think they would.
Let me tell you that Ipswich and Leicester are both odds on to go down, and you're not.
That's surprising.
Most of the bookies have you around about Everton's price to go down. There's a couple of reasons for that, I think. One is we expect Leicester to get a points deduction.
Yeah.
So they're mitigating against that, and there could be more for Everton as well.
Yeah, true.
But at the moment, the bookies have you to finish 17th/18th and have you as a similar price as Everton to go down. That comes as a surprise, I take it.
Yeah, I guess the mitigating factor, like you said there, is the Leicester points deduction. I think without that, we'd probably be relegation candidates. But yeah, I mean, to put us next to Everton, for instance, I'd very much take that.
Do you think it's also based on philosophy? I.e., Leicester losing their manager, we know, and we at time of recording, we don't know what they're doing. But you've got, I know you said you've adapted towards the end of the season. There's possibly a school of thought here that actually the football that Russell Martin wants to play will be better suited in the Premier League than it was in the Championship. Would that be fair?
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
It also could get exposed quite badly, though.
Yeah, and that's where the management is going to have to come in terms of ensuring we don't just stick to a single philosophy. And that was our problem in the season that we went down and seasons gone by. We historically not had a plan B. And it's taken Russell some time. And I think obviously he's a young manager. He's still got a lot to kind of improve on. But I do think there were moments in the season where he probably questioned himself. And I think the team around him have clearly been beneficial to him. But yeah, those moments were like, actually, guys, this is how I want to play, but this is how we need to play. And it's that need that I think he's really worked on.
QPR, Stoke, Sunderland, Millwall, Bristol City, Coventry, Middlesbrough, Hull, Norwich, West Brom, Leeds, Ipswich, Leicester. All conceded less goals than you last season.
Doesn't surprise me.
Is that the area of the squad that needs the most work?
I don't know if it's the area that needs the most work. I think it's the way in which we set up to ensure that they're not exposed that needs the most work. So I think is a back line, we will inevitably have, like, Harwood Bellis is now a Saints player as of the first, with the obligation to buy on promotion. So we've got him for 20 million. I think
That's
Bednarak,
quite sizable, Matt.
yeah, yeah. So we committed effectively, if we get up, we'll pay say 20 million for Harwood Bellis. And to be fair, given how well he's played, I think that's a steal. And I can see someone probably coming in for him in a couple of seasons' time. It wouldn't surprise me. He's a real asset, and he's incredibly passionate, which has been good.
I'm a little surprised by the fee, purely because Burnley obviously never took up the option themselves this time last year.
It's baffling, and he touched on it a little bit. We had a little pathetic postseason party at St Mary's. I didn't go, but he was asked about it, and he's like, it's great to know that I'm at a club now that wants me, and I'm at a club where I know I'm going to be for the foreseeable. And it's really strange that nobody picked him up last season, but we're the beneficiaries of that.
Do you think he'll be a back three regularly then next season now?
I think I think we may chop and change games that are potentially against teams in and around us that we know we've got to get points. We might revert to type and maybe go for that possession base, try and tire them out. But when you come up against teams that see that week in, week out, yeah, I think quite possibly then we'll potentially go for a back three, try and either get a point or at least wear an opposition down.
So if you're at Man City or the Emirates opening day, it
Back three.
wouldn't be unthinkable that you'd go 5-4-1, for example, then.
No, definitely not.
Okay, so you have the capacity to now do that, you think?
Yep.
Okay. From this team that played in the playoff final,
Yep.
what needs most work here, and who's good enough, do you think? So is Bazunu going to be number one again? Because I know we've
So
spoken about the distribution, but
Bazunu's out until
his shot save numbers are not good again, mate.
no. He's actually going to probably be out until March 25.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he ruptured his Achilles, which is why McCarthy came in. And yeah, the kind of likelihood is he's probably going to be. I reckon it's a season. If
That's
yeah, he
sad
might
that.
get fit for next week, but yeah, it's really unfortunate. Um, he does have difficulties in terms of his shot stopping. That's been a main thing. He's exceptional at picking out a pass, but there are periods where you've questioned saying, yeah, he should have done better there. And I think being thrown in the Premier League the last time round probably detrimental to him a little bit, and it would have massively impacted his confidence. The issue being that McCarthy is currently out of contract, and we haven't seen an extension given to him as of yet. I wouldn't be surprised if we give him another year or two, and then he's the number one with Lumley behind him. If not, we're going to have to go in for a keeper this summer.
Surely you're going in for a keeper here, Matt.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Surely.
Well,
We only have to look at examples of like Leicester and Burnley over the last couple of years of difficulties by not getting that position right.
I'd. It wouldn't surprise me if they have McCarthy as number one, because
I think I'd be concerned for you if that's the case.
yeah, I think their focus. I mean, I'd like to see a keeper come in, but they may well think, well, look, we put the money in for Bazunu.
He can't play the way he wants to with
No,
McCarthy either. You've already
it,
said that. So
exactly. That's the difficulty. And I mean, Lumley can, but I don't like the idea of say what Brighton have done in terms of chopping and changing keepers. I don't think that works personally. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something niggling at me that it's not a priority position for them, albeit we can clearly see that you need a good solid defensive structure. And where does that start? Well, goalkeeper that can save.
okay. Is Jan Bednarek, is it all forgiven now and it's all okay? Because
Yeah,
there was a fallout, wasn't there?
yeah, Yanni B. Yeah, he's fine now. Yeah, he kind of, I suppose his performances on the pitch were his apology really. Yeah, it didn't end particularly well. Comments he made when he went to Villa were stupid, but I think he's realised that, and he came back and really put a performance in. And when Armstrong wasn't playing, for instance, occasionally got the armband, and that shows how well he's done.
Okay. And I take it from what you're saying, Martin wants Jack Stevens part of this team now, does he?
Yep. Yeah, yeah. There's a reason that Stevens was made club captain. He does have some negatives to his game. Sometimes he'd be quite lackluster on the ball. Sometimes he can lose it in completely the wrong positions. But when he's on it, he's on it. And some of the performances he put in, particularly towards the end of the season, you could see that he really wanted to ensure that the club got put up.
Okay. Is Kyle Walker-Peters staying?
Yeah.
Sure.
If we had stayed down, I wouldn't have been surprised to see him sold on the 1st of June, because there would have been clubs, and I think there would be. But I would like to hope that he's seen enough from Martin and the club, having not taken the opportunity when he more than capably could have, to leave in either January or the summer gone by. I think he may well give us a season, and it'd be great if he does.
If a big six club came looking, say a 15 million fee or something, does the club consider it?
Possibly, yeah. If say a Spurs, for instance, or a
I mean, I
Liverpool.
wasn't alluding to my club, but we have a homegrown problem. And if we can also
Exactly.
get one that is club trained,
Yep.
there
Then
has been links about Kyle
yeah,
Walker-Peters
that
coming
has.
back.
Yeah. But I'm hopeful that he stays, because he's far too good for the Championship, and it'd be great to see him back in the league. But obviously,
Well,
with
I
a much,
actually, from a neutral perspective, I would hope for Kyle that he stays with you because if he comes back to my club, he's not going to start.
he won't start exactly.
He'd be amazing cover at fullback on both sides, but he wouldn't start. So,
Nope.
from a career perspective, I think he would be better off staying with yourselves, actually. There's some players here who played in the final. David Brooks, who's obviously had well documented illness problems. Ryan Fraser
Yep.
has had a difficult few years, who people might look at that and think, not going to be up to standard here. Brooks was obviously on loan from Bournemouth. Is there a chance of a permanent here or not?
I'd be surprised. I think Brooks has been great for us in periods. There were other games where he was completely anonymous. I think for the fee that Bournemouth would likely want for him, we may look elsewhere.
Okay. Fraser?
The strong rumours are we're going to get him on a free. Newcastle effectively want to get him on the books, off the books, and I don't think he will be a regular starter, but he clearly has a bond with Russell Martin, and his kind of love for the South Coast, his home. He calls his home Bournemouth, etc. He's got his family down here. I think he'll probably end up coming, and yeah, being just part of the squad really.
Okay. And Flynn Downs is busy shouting at parades irons.
Yeah,
I
that was taken out of context a little bit, but yeah, it was funny. Yeah, it
I
was
mean, it
amusing.
was, but to be honest, Sudge was like, that's out of order. And I said, I've seen it. It's not that
Yeah,
bad.
no, no.
It's really not. But people reacted badly to it.
Oh, it's more. I've seen a lot of West Ham fans saying, "Oh, that cements the fact he's coming back." Um, he does it because I think he's being put in an uncomfortable position of being questioned about the club, and everyone's like, sign him up, blah blah blah. He obviously can't say, but I'd like to hope we could get Flynn, because one, he's been with Martin. This is his second club with him now. Um, I think he fits our style of play perfectly, and he's essential. If we can't sign Flynn Downs on a permanent, we're going to have to find someone that is very similar to ensure that we can perform in the Premier League. I mean, yeah, I reckon Lopetegui will probably take a look at him, but I'm hopeful that if we can bid 15, 20 million, I think we could get him.
Okay. Small bone ready for this level now, Premier League level.
Yeah, I think he's grown up a lot in the last couple of seasons. His loan spell at Stoke, whilst obviously we were struggling in the Premier League, did him the world of good. They weren't too impressed with the fact that he came back, but he's a loan player. What are you going to do? And yeah, I think he's performed brilliantly this season. He's really stepped up.
Joe Rebo found a place now, has he?
Yeah, he's probably been the most surprising player this season, because I thought he looked out of his depth the first season that we had with him, but he was played out of position, and he seems to thrive in that midfield three. He's incredibly sharp with his touch. He's very good at kind of protecting the ball and kind of in close quarters with the opposition player. He can kind of make it hard. I think the only thing he needs to really improve on is kind of his finishing and maybe that end product, but that could come. But yeah, he really has kind of cemented himself in, and it was really disappointing when he went to the African Cup of Nations, because it was at that point where he had really gone, well, actually, this is my spot now. and then suddenly we lost him again for 6 or 7 weeks, and it took him a bit of time again to come back in. But I've been really impressed.
Adam Armstrong. So when he joined you, a lot of us, myself included, really thought he would do well.
Yep.
It didn't really work, but he's had a stormer of a season. Is this too good for the championship, not good enough for the Prem?
Yet to see, but I don't think Nathan Jones or Sellers helped Armstrong at all the season gone by. I think he was incredibly isolated in the positional sense and just didn't seem to have an impact on a game where he's almost allowed to kind of move across that front three. Occasionally he'll start out wide and he'll cut in, etc. And I think the way that we now approach a game, he's a focal point. Yes, he probably needs someone like Che, who, maybe touch on that, is likely to move on, or like a Stewart. I don't think he's an out and out forward on his own, but the way that he can finish from tight angles and is kind of his range when he's in and around the box is exceptional. And his goal, obviously, against Leeds and his goal prior to that against West Brom in the playoffs, both very good finishes.
Yeah, and from opposite sides with
Yeah,
opposite feet as well. That's kind of prototype his goal.
exactly. And he's a confidence player. Once he gets going, that's it. So, yeah, I'd like to think that he could probably step up this season in the Premier League. Very unlikely to hit anywhere near the numbers he's obviously hit in the Championship, but he's definitely an asset to have.
What does this team need most then?
I think we need a goal scorer. And like an out
So
and
you're
out.
not convinced that Armstrong's going to be it?
I don't think no. I don't think he'll be the out and out number 9, for instance. I think if we can get someone in that is very good at hold up play, but as a bit of a presence, I think that will benefit Armstrong's game. But counting the fact that if we can get downs, I think the next best thing is a goal scorer, because Che's very likely to go probably to Wolves. I think that's all the rumours. Ross Stewart is clearly made of glass, and Sekumara just isn't good enough.
Hold on,
So
they said Danny Ings was made of glass, and that hurt
he
my
is.
FPL rank quite badly, I seem to recall.
But yeah, I mean, we're lacking there. Effectively, we've got 1.5 if you count Stewart, because he plays 20 minutes and then won't appear for 6 months. So if he could get fit, I'd like to see him, because obviously he's highly rated from Sunderland. But he just hasn't had the opportunity this season through injury.
Okay. And the manager, how important is he to all this?
Very. Yeah, I think he has the board's backing, and he's now got the fans on side through obviously the season we've had. You've probably seen the endless videos of very similar, kind of quirks to Klopp in terms of going up to the away fans at the end, kind of getting that vibe about the club. And you can see his passion. Like sometimes he maybe oversteps the mark, and he's had a few bookings, last season and a couple of touchline bans. But I think that just shows the passion for the club. He's not a guy that just lets things go, and you can see it during the game as well. He gets incredibly animated, and he clearly cares. And I think he sees this as a project where he can actually prove himself as a manager to the outside world, because we've potentially got a better budget, for instance, in Swansea, probably a better academy. Kind of we can draw more players in that are of his kind of mold, rather than trying to work with the pieces. And yeah, I'm hopeful for a good season.
It's been cool to look at the promoted managers, but as far as we're aware, no one's been looking at him, Matt.
Stay away.
Okay. Good stuff, mate. Thank you very much. Good luck for the
No,
new
no problem.
season. We'll certainly speak again on Correspondent Week before we start, and we'll talk a little bit more FPL then. Before we finish,
Absolutely.
though, I want to leave you on one school of thought on your team.
Yep.
There is a school of thought that you'll do better in the Premier League for consistency due to having less games. Martin himself has represented on occasion that he's found it difficult when you've had to play Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday.
Yep.
Is that because of an intensity that you play with at, or is it being able to pick a more familiar lineup more regularly?
A bit of both. I think the intensity that the players are expected to play out is tiring. And yeah, I think it was during that February, March period. We played, I think it was 10 to 12 games in the space of 4 weeks, which just took it out of the players. But I do think the regularity of picking the same 11 is important, particularly with the current depth of squad that we've got. If that can be improved, that will only help. But yeah, the whole Tuesday, Saturday thing, it clearly took it out on Martin and it took it out on the players.
Do you expect him to have that? I'm not saying you won't make changes, but a kind of a regular, this is my first 11 and we'll
Yeah,
make the odd changes.
I'd expect so.
Good stuff. Matt, thank you very much. Anything you want to plug before we finish, my friend?
Nah, just Patreon. Now that the Saints channel's back up on Slack, you'll hear more from me.
He's back in the Southampton channel on Slack, guys. Thank you very much, Matt.
Pleasure.
I'll be streaming tomorrow. I think it's 12 o'clock, but we are pre-recording this on Monday, so that might change by the time it comes round. Look forward to speaking to you in Correspondent Week, and good luck to our Saints followers during the summer. By a goalkeeper, mate. Cue music, please, man child.